Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly.
Whoa, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly for another week here on Studio Live today, brought to you by me. Yeah, brought to you by my GarageBand FAQ. If you are learning GarageBand, or if you're new to GarageBand, or you just need a refresher and want to ask some questions, studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand is the place to go. On the show today, we got your usual GarageBand goodness. We got some news and notes all about iPads. A lot of rumors floating around. We've got our app of the week. We're taking a look at the Flux Mini 2 and the Flux Pro. Our first look at those from Calum Audio. That should be a lot of fun. And our feature topic, WTF is EQ. If you're struggling with EQ, if you're working on EQ and you don't really know what you're doing and you want a little quick crash course on EQ and stuff, hang around because we'll be talking about that. All of that in a bucket of fish on GarageBand Weekly. G'day to the folks who are here live. I hope you are all doing well, having or had a good weekend, depending where you are in the world. Hello to Mark Bro. Hello to Thomas Christ. G'day Danny Gable. Hello to Aaron Johnson. Hello to everybody. And yeah, as you can see there in the link, if you want to check that one out, the GarageBand iOS FAQ studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. I don't know why I'm suddenly talking in this voice. Let's jump in and talk about the news and the notes of the last week or so. And it's pretty iPad Pro heavy. There's been a lot of videos, a lot of leaks, a lot of things talking about new iPads. So there's a few links down in the description. The first thing I'm going to talk about is Pro mode on iPad Pros. So there was a video from Max Tech, who is a iOS and iPad video creator, YouTuber, and I'll bring it up here. There's some interesting info in here. I won't play the audio, but just to show you a little bit. Mark Gurman, who's a serial iOS and Apple rumor person, came out with a few sort of interesting things this week, and Max Tech has a good overview of those. So I'll let you go and catch that and check that one out in your own time. But one of the things that came out of this, and there's some other things we'll talk about in a minute, but one of the main things that came out was a Pro mode. So let's take a step back. The iPad Pro, last year's model, the 2021, got an M1 chip, which means that it's the same chip that's in your Mac. The same chip is in the Mac Mini, the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, and the new Mac Studio, the M1 chip. But the criticism of that is there are no apps. There's nothing that needs the M1 chip. There's nothing that needs 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes of RAM. So a lot of folks were saying, hey, this is really nice, Apple, that we've got these brand new iPad Pros. But not only are there no really pro apps in iOS, but we've got nothing that can use this M1. Well, the idea is that that's all about to change with iPad OS 16. And one of the things that could be coming, that's being rumored, is this Pro mode, which would give you true multitasking. It will give you like a better dock. It'll give you desktop features and folders and the ability to not just that side-by-side iPad thing that we've got at the moment, but actual true multi-windows. The one thing that I want is to be able to export your display as a separate display. So one of the reasons that I use a desktop setup here for shows like this is that I've got a screen here, I've got a screen here, I've got a webcam there, I've got my iPad here. If I'm using my iPad, I only get one screen. So that's the number one pro desktop feature, is if you're plugging it into an external screen, you don't just want mirroring, you want the ability to actually say, have something there, have one of your apps, like have your amp sim on your iPad, and then have a big, nice, chunky GarageBand or Aurea or Cubasis display on your main screen, like 27-inch LCD, so that you can actually complement what you're doing. So I don't know. I never know with these rumors and things, but they were pretty confident about that. So we will see. What do you think? Pro mode? I think Pro mode's something that's going to come to the iPad OS. Potentially. We'll see. The other thing is that there's another video which you may want to check out as well about the 2022. This one's from Zone of Tech, and that's this one over here. So this one's all about the 2022 iPad Pro lineup, all the different things that could potentially be coming there. Like you can see there, MagSafe charging on the back, and major updates to the framework and to how everything works, and to the it's going to be awesome. That's what's being said. Again, we'll soon find out, because we will get these announcements coming potentially in WWDC, but more likely, as we progress through the year. Again, I'm not getting an iPad Pro upgrading from my 2020 model, which is the last of the A series chip. I'm not going to go to an M chip because, again, I use GarageBand and I use LumaFusion, and my 2020 my 2020 my 2020 iPad Pro crushes those. So I got no purpose to actually update it yet until we get more information. It looks like iPad OS 16 may be where we finally get some sort of Pro mode or Pro features that are going to go along with everything. We will see. The other one that I thought was funny, I've just put in the notes here, a 20-inch foldable iPad laptop hybrid with a touchscreen keyboard. Anyone keen on that one? So we're talking like, imagine a Magic Keyboard and an iPad at the moment. That's obviously a tactile keyboard and an iPad screen. Imagine if that was like a 20-inch, but it folded down and it just had screens on both sides, so you could bring up a touch screen on one, and I guess you'd fold it out and it would be an even bigger screen if you, I don't know. Every time I laugh about this stuff, remember when the iPad first came out and everyone was laughing about the name, ha ha ha, iPad, and what is it, a feminine hygiene product? And it turned out to be kind of a game changer for us in the creation community. Anyway, another interesting thing, and if you haven't been following the theme of the repair your own, the right to repair stuff, well, Apple have actually come out now and they've provided the ability for you, anyone, to actually repair your own iPhone. And it's very interesting the way things work there. So there's a great video which I'd highly recommend you check out from Snazzy Labs, where he actually goes through the process. So there he is. That's the kit that you get from Apple to actually replace it. That's got the screen in it, and that's what they send you, because they literally let you rent their entire sort of screen heating press. So it's really interesting to see the behind the scenes of how that all works and how to actually fix your own iPhone screen. I don't know about you, but I'll still be going in and talking to a genius and saying, "Genius, can you fix me screen?" Because I got no desire to be peeling off and prying out chips and then heating up my iPhone and then pulling the screen off and putting the new screen on and replacing the battery. They can do it for me, but I'm the least handy man in the world. Which is weird because people are like, "Oh, Australians, you're all very handy. You know, you love going out to your sheds." And we were getting some work done the other day, and my wife said to this tradie, "Oh, I really need to find like a cheap tiler that can do a cheap cash job and just cut these tiles and stick them up there." And he's like, "Oh, doesn't your husband have an angle grinder?" And she's like, "No, he really doesn't. He's the least handy man in the world." All right, so that's all I have this week. It's all rumors. It's all conjecture and hearsay and rumors in the world of iOS and GarageBand creating. On the Mac front, well, we've just had the new announcement of the Mac Studios and the Mac Studio Display. We're waiting on WWDC. I don't think there's a whole lot happening in the world of Mac in very, very short future. Mac OS Monterey is out now. I'm using it. It seems to work well. If you're on Big Sur, I think it's pretty safe to update now. Everything seems to be playing nicely, including my OBS, which I've done a few tweaks with. And if you've been watching the show lately, we tend to crash halfway through. So we've got our fingers crossed here. Cross your fingers and your toes for me that we don't have any issues here today. Let's say good day to the folks who are here live, and then I'll tell you a few things that are happening personally around the channel that I wanted to pass on. Hey, there you go. I know, what a surprise seeing me on my own channel. Hello, Jade Star. Thank you for dropping on by. Did I see Gregory O'Sullivan? Hello to you, my friend. Hello to Bo Few GarageBand covers. Thanks for being here. Why the Logic Pro is $200? Because that's how much they sell it for. I don't know what to tell you. Why do things cost money? Yeah, it's good. It's worth it. I would say for most people, it's worth it. Hello, Omni Collective Creativity. Got 2 premieres tonight. Wow. Very, very cool. Good stuff. Creating music in GarageBand, doing your thing. I like it. Me, myself, and iPhone. This is like window shopping for me. There you go. We'll see if we've got any other questions or comments before we go. Pro features would definitely be cool. Put that M1 power to use. Yeah, well, look, that's the thing. We've got the M1. We've had the M1 chip in there since the 2021 model, and there's literally nothing that uses it. I know that Jade Star's been considering an upgrade, but again, there's nothing for it. Patrick Baird went and updated to the M1. And yeah, talking to these folks, they're like, that have it, they're like, to the point where a lot of people have returned it. They're like, look, there's no point having this yet. I might as well get a refurb 2018 or 2020 model and then wait till you can actually do something with it before you get there. We need more geniuses on Earth. We need more Apple geniuses or regular geniuses. I don't know. Clayton Von Kluge, hello to you. Hope you're doing well. Crossing toes is very difficult to do. Absolutely. All right. Quick coffee break. Now, to be completely self-serving here, a couple of things that are happening around the channel that I wanted to draw your attention to. One is very much GarageBand related, and that is that my new tune, I did a video of my song Murdering Time. Now, because it's my song, I can actually play it with the audio, so we'll just put that on the background there. So I created this. This is the original version I did in GarageBand Mac. And all I basically did is I took away everything. I stripped it all right back to the acoustic guitar and the vocals. And this was the result. Only feeling the pain. I just did a bit of a fun video of myself there, which I just literally shot sitting right here on my webcam, but then I threw it into LumaFusion, which, if you're not aware, is my favorite video editing app on iOS, and put it together there. So in terms of how I actually did that in GarageBand, let's take a look at the project, shall we, since we're here on GarageBand Weekly. So this is all it is. So the original version had, horns, it had strings, it had piano, it had a marimba there doing like a boom, 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 boom. There was a whole bunch of stuff in there. It had some drums, it had some bassoon in there as well, a whole lot of things that I was playing around with, but I stripped it right back so that we've just got the guitar. So there's 4 guitar parts in there that you can see. We've got the vocals and the backing vocals, and that's it. So it's literally, what did it end up being? Seven channels, 7 tracks. And when you strip something back like this, the key thing is that sometimes it can feel a little bit sparse. So I did definitely drive up quite a lot of the reverb. And look, I was playing around with just the smart controls. I literally came in here and just sent a little bit more plate and spring reverb here on the vocals, and on the guitar. You can see here I've got some stereo width and the ambience and the reverb that I've driven up. So if we solo these guitar parts together, when they're all playing at once, they sound like this. And yeah, look, there was a little bit, there's a bit of phasing there, so it's not supposed to kind of sound that chorusy, but I didn't mind it. Like, sometimes you just use what you got, and even though it was a little bit phasey, it worked out well. And with the vocals, I did the same sort of thing. I kind of just increased the reverb and the delay on these, so we got something like this. Time to save myself and others from the thoughts in my mind. I'm murdering time. So again, basically just using some more reverb and some more delay. So it was very, very simple remix. And the main reason I did this is for something that I'll talk about later in the show, which is releasing this using DistroKid that I did from my iPad. So yeah, I've done some testing. I've done it from my iPhone. I've now done it from my iPad, and it worked. First time, both times, which is something that we can't say in the past because DistroKid has not worked well in the past on that. Alrighty. Let's move on to one final thing. Yes, in terms of things that are happening around the channel, the Creator Town Hall has been a lot of fun. If you missed the show last week, I had Mr. Mike Enjo from Creative Source on, and we talked about a bunch of different topics, including YouTube and music and creativity in music, and is musical variety dead, and all the songs now that are in 4/4 time and the same tempo, is this affecting our creativity? So that was a lot of fun. And guess what? We got to our 2nd episode of the all new and improved, all singing, all dancing Creator Town Hall, and that's coming up in 3 days' time. And guess who we've got? Yes, the one and only Thomas Christ. So we'll be talking about a bunch of different topics, but the main topic is singles versus albums in 2022. Is it worth releasing albums anymore? And I thought that's the perfect person to have on there to talk about that topic is Mr. Thomas Christ, who has released 18 now, Thomas, or are you working on number 18? 17 or 18 albums. Is getting very close to 20 albums, which is kind of ridiculous. Anyone that's tried to release one album knows how challenging that can be. The fact that Thomas has like 18 of the suckers is kind of ridiculous. So jump in and set yourself a reminder for that one right now. It is linked down in the description, and it should be an awful lot of fun chatting to the one and only Thomas Christ, which is very much fun. There you go. Bookmark the stream there. That's right. Get onto it. And thank you, Jade. Yeah, the acoustic version is ready to stream, is ready for all of your goodness over there. We'll just see if we've got any other questions. Feel free to ask a question, by the way, just starting on number 18. There you go. Hey, dude, don't call me dude. What's going on, dudes? Dudes and dudettes? I use the word duty a lot, which is weird. I'm like, what's up, my duty? And I think some people get offended by that, but you don't have to. Yeah, if you've got a question, all you need to do is put a Q. I'm not going to even ask you to say question. Just put a big capital Q or put 3 Qs. Just put something in there that's going to catch my attention because in case you didn't realize, I go off on tangents from time to time. So sometimes I need something to bring me back on to focus. Excuse me a moment. Couldn't find my mute button in time. Alrighty, let's pressed the wrong button. Let's get onto the next segment of the show, shall we? So that was a lot of news and notes. That was a lot going on there, but I thought it was worth talking about because there's a lot of interesting things, and you got some homework to do if you want to watch some of those videos. Watch that iPhone repair video. If you've ever thought that you might want to get into repairing your own stuff, that will probably deter you. So I would recommend watching it before you go and hire the tools and get the big Pelican case full of stuff from Apple. Go and watch that video and see if you really want to be involved in that sort of stuff. Alrighty. Let's talk EQ, shall we? I've got my iPad set up here, and I thought a good track to play around with some EQ, because it kind of has everything, is my track called Imagination. So, WTF is EQ. What is EQ all about? How do you use it in GarageBand or in whatever DAW you're using? Well, here's the simple part. EQ is a volume control for your frequencies. And I know when I say that, some people say that's too oversimplifying, but it really is. Some EQs will add some color. So if you're using like a vintage EQ or you're using an EQ that's like part of a plugin or part of a pack, it might change the sound a bit. A pure EQ, all it's really doing, a parametric EQ, it's just turning up or down the sound at different frequencies. So let's take it back to the start. We'll grab my vocal here to start with. Let's solo this down because vocal is a very dynamic instrument. So this is a vocal for this hip hop track that I've got called Imagination. And if everything's working, we should be able to hit play.
Sometimes I sit around and wonder how it is I got here and if I'm going under.
So there is my track. That's my sound. We've got a couple of ways that we can EQ this. The very simplest way is, and a lot of like GarageBand Mac and GarageBand iOS have smart controls, and they have this very simple control. So if you hit on this button here, you've got treble and you've got bass. And in its simplest form, that's the way we look at it. We're like, do we want more or less treble or high end? Do we want more or less bass or low end? So if I'm looking at this vocal and I'm like, I'm sounding too thin, we need some more bass, we need some more high end. If we hit play, we can drag this one up and it's going to add some bass.
All the complications of my life, all the times when I couldn't reach a knife in my back to the days when I was a little kid. Always worry about...
Now, is that sounding good? Absolutely not, because what that's bringing out is all those sort of spitting and breathing noises that are in there. So we wouldn't put that on this particular vocal. It's making it sound terrible. We can do the same with the treble. What if we we don't have enough high end in this? We can play
about the things I never did. Always thinking about the next big problem, even when it's someone else that's on the hook me in.
Now, do we need either of those things in this? Not really. But what you could do, because you see when we turn that bass up, it actually sounded worse. You can actually do what's called a subtractive EQ. And a lot of the time people think about what you got to turn up, but really you should also be looking at what you want to turn down and removing some of those frequencies. So if I listened to this vocal, and I went, look, there's actually too much bass in here. I can hear some of those bassy tones that are going to conflict with things like bass guitars and kick drums. I can actually drag that down. So if we hit the play button.
Always worry about the things I never did. Always think about the next big problem, even when it's someone else that's on the hook me in.
That's actually pretty good. Now, another thing that I'll mention here is EQing something by itself is often not the best idea either, because frequencies and your EQ, the different frequencies, the highs and the mids and the lows, you really need to be comparing them with your other tracks while you're moving your EQ around, because what I see a lot of folks doing when they're starting out is that they'll EQ their vocal or they'll EQ their guitar or they'll EQ their drums, and then they'll bring it back into the mix and it'll get completely lost because they've EQ'd out the frequencies that they really needed to come through, or they've added frequencies that are already overly abundant within the track or within the project. So be very, very careful with that when you are EQing. So that's the basic level of EQing. You can then take it up a couple of notches, which is to actually go in and play around with some parametric EQing. Now here in GarageBand, that is here under your plugins and EQ, and under the visual EQ here. So if we tap on this visual EQ, you can see that that EQ move that we made there has already done this little duck dive down here. So reducing from everything from the 200 hertz down, that's been reduced here in our EQ. So we can now come and play with this, but now not only can we turn things up and down, we can decide what frequency we want to go up and down. So if you go over to the left, you can actually go, oh, I only want everything below 50 hertz to be turned down. So we can do that. Or you can go right up to here. And this is where you can start using EQ less as a thing to fix your mix or to improve your sound, and more as an actual effect. So if you've ever wanted that real kind of telephone AM radio kind of effect, you can actually sweep your EQ, your bass here, and remove a lot of the bass from the track, and you get a sound like this.
Sometimes I sit around and wonder how it is I got here and if I'm going under. All the complications of my life, all the times when...
So you can actually adjust that. And again, because you've got the ability to choose your frequency, I've sort of turned down around that 1 hertz, because you probably noticed I've got a bit of a nasally voice sometimes. So, and what you can do is to identify the frequencies you may want to turn down, is to actually turn them up first and then turn them down. And there's a technique called sweeping in EQ that you can actually use to find these. So let's play this, and we'll turn this up. We'll find a frequency that maybe we don't like, and then we'll reduce it.
When I couldn't reach the knife in my back to the days when I was a little kid. Always worry about the things I never did.
Yeah, I think it's around about there, around about that 1.5 to 2,000 hertz. That's where I sort of don't like that tone. So if we play this again and we turn it down, I can actually remove some of that nasally tone.
Always thinking about the next big problem, even when it's someone else that's on the hook me in.
Now the top end here, this is where you can add a little bit of sparkle. This is where, you know, people say that sheen or that sparkle you might want to add to the sound. And we can do that by increasing at the top end here. So if we hit play on this and we just drive this up, like right up the top here, and these aren't, like, none of my vocals are at 5 kilohertz, but this is just sort of that high-end air, almost that inaudible, unfathomable bit that you're going to actually improve. So let's just take a listen to this.
In line and sinker. Ever wonder what it's like to be an overthinker, tinker with all my little thoughts? Maybe it was just the way that I...
Now I turned it up there to the extreme just so that you can kind of hear the difference there. So that is the basics of EQ. Well, most of your EQs, if you just double tap, everything goes back to flat and you can start from scratch. So that's the simple and the intermediate version of EQ. The third layer here is actually using an EQ plugin. So if you've got yourself an EQ AUV3 plugin, you can actually add that here. So if we tap on the plugins and EQ here, I've actually got a whole bunch of things already in here, but actually I do have a slot there. So what we can do is we can hit the plus button there, go to audio unit extensions. Now there's a bunch of different EQ plugins that you can get. The ones that I recommend are free, and they are LRC5 or LRC7. Now when you're starting out, I would go LRC5 because it's only 5 band, but LRC7 actually has even more bands. And when we're talking bands, we're just talking about abilities to turn up or down a particular frequency. So let's load up LRC7 just so that we've got the additional frequencies here. If we tap on this one, we've now got a very similar layout here to what we had before. But instead of just having those 3, we can double tap these, and you can actually add in as many of these as we like, and we can start moving our sounds around and start changing things up here by adjusting our EQ curve. So this works exactly the same way as the visual EQ we were just talking about, but you've got a lot more control. And the cool thing with this one is you can actually, if we tap on these, if you can't actually see it, but if you use 2 fingers, you can actually change how thin or how wide those are, what we call the Q setting. So if you just want to do like a subtle change, you can make it sort of thinner and narrower, or if you want it to be really big, you can do that. And as I said, LRC5 is the other version. These are both free, and they're both from Neon Silicon, who are a developer who create cool little EQ plugins. So you can try LRC7 or the OG. And to be honest, I actually use LRC5 perhaps a little bit more. Now I can't find it. There it is, LRC5. I use LRC5 a little bit more because I just just find that it's a much simpler and cleaner interface here. All of these are already on, and you just tap them and drag them and move them around. So that's another way that you can actually adjust your EQ here in GarageBand. So you got your simple, you got your treble and your bass, your very basic EQ. You can then go into your visual EQ to tweak your EQs there on a 3-band, and then if you want a 5 or a 7-band EQ or any other sort of EQ, because again, you don't have to just use LRC 5 or 7. There's a heap of others that you can add in here, and you could even use something like I forgot the name of it now. I'll put a link to it in the description. Mixbox. There you go. You can use something like Mixbox, which actually has built-in EQs in here. So you can actually use something like this that has a whole bunch of different EQs, and these are ones. So you could use something like this vintage EQ 1A, and this again has your different EQ levels that you can change, but this is actually adding something. So this is actually going to color your sound a little bit more than actually just a standard EQ. So there you are. Options galore for EQing in GarageBand iOS. And it's very similar if you're over on a Mac. Obviously, you've got very similar options that you can use over there because you've got EQ, and it's actually probably a better EQ. But yeah, definitely the visual EQ on Mac is significantly better than the one we have here on the iPad or the iPhone. Quick drinks break. And I've done that a few times before, and many of you watching here live will probably go, yeah, Pete, we know how to use an EQ. But sometimes just taking that step back, sometimes we go in and we start EQing things and we're like, what am I doing here? I need more of this sound. And you forget some basic things like subtractive EQ, like listening out for the frequencies you don't like. Because sometimes you just go, this needs more bass, this needs more treble. You throw everything up, and then what happens? Your mix sounds crappy because you've boosted too many frequencies. Got to look at what you need to remove as well as what you need to add from things. Hello to folks who have joined us since we've been chatting. Hello to Master Singleton. Hope you are doing well. Yeah, always try to cut instead of boost if possible. Absolutely. See ya, me, myself, and iPhone. In most cases, subtractive EQ is more important. Clayton Von Clue says, I'm surprised when I realize again and again how sensitive the EQ and limiting and condenser really are. A little goes a long way. Yeah, exactly. You often don't need, like, I've seen people with EQs and they're like boosting 10 dB. They're like, this needs some bass. Don't know what that voice was. They go, this needs some bass, and they just throw 10 dBs of EQ at like 200 hertz. And I'm like, yeah, it probably doesn't need that much. Like, less is more when it comes to EQing things. By the way, how cool is the melted face emoji? It's one of the new set of emojis. And when the new set of emojis were announced, I was like, oh, there's nothing here. This is all boring and all pointless stuff because I don't really like any of them. But yeah, the melting face is just awesome. Sparkle. Yeah, you want that sparkle and that sheen at the top end. I do rap. You're going to hear a bit more of this track in our next section that we'll be talking about, where we're looking at the Flux Mini 2 and the Flux Pro, because they are just released from Calum Audio, and they're very, very cool. Yeah, it is. It's important to revisit some of those basics sometimes. You get complacent, you get a little bit sort of overconfident with what you're doing, and the weird thing is, you could actually get worse. Like, does anyone else find that when you start out, because you don't know what you don't know, and you just go for it, you just start twiddling knobs and you start working out, and then you learn a bunch of stuff, and then you try and apply that learning, but you overdo it, and then you overcook your mixes and everything sounds worse, and it takes a while. So you kind of go on this roller coaster ride where you start here, down here, knowing nothing. You improve because you just trial and error, but then when you start learning, you kind of dip down a bit, and that's the dip of frustration. I'm going to trademark 2022, but the dip of frustration is that point where you feel like you should be doing better because you know more, but you actually end up doing worse. Does anyone else ever get that, or is that just me? Hello. I'm glad. Thank you. Hello to Nebulous Miyagi. I'm glad that I've helped your songs out. Make sure you submit your songs to Your Music Live. We've got episode 100 of Your Music Live coming up this week. Hello, Mike and Dawn. I hope you are doing well as well. StreamYard still won't display the new emojis. Oh, really? Oh, that's a shame. I don't know how to try it, but I'll take your word for it, Thomas, because you'd be all over that one. Yeah, same. I know. It's weird, isn't it? Like, especially, I'm at that point with Logic at the moment. I'm about to dive back into Logic Pro. And when I first used Logic, it felt really good. It felt really intuitive because I wasn't diving in. I wasn't checking out all the different options. And now that I'm learning a whole bunch more about all the different sends and receives and plugins and space designers and everything, it all just feels a bit overwhelming. Whereas when I just went in and went add track, record, chuck your smart controls on, fiddle around, it worked well. Yeah, it's pretty common. Like, it's definitely common, and from people that I've talked to, seems to be the way we all go. Alrighty, let's move on to our rant of the week. So, I wanted to rant on something, and I've got absolutely no skin in this game. But have you noticed that everything is nostalgia at the moment? Like, everything is going back to nostalgia. So I'm literally watching like brand new music videos that are being deliberately shot and released in 4:3, like, so that they're not even square, not even the 1:1 Instagram, but 4:3. And it's so weird because for those of us that grew up with television and going into movies, the 16:9, the change from 4:3 to 16:9, so that's your old square tube TV to your nice widescreen 16:9, that was really cool. That was the HD days where everyone went out and bought, really expensive heavy plasma TVs so that we could watch 720p sparkling goodness in our big giant 32-inch plasmas. Whereas now, obviously, everyone's got 60-inch, 70-inch LEDs and LCDs and OLEDs and all sorts. But isn't it weird that mostly because of this device here, everything is going back to either being portrait mode or being a square? Because what are people doing? They're just sitting there with their thumbs scrolling through and looking at stuff. At the same time, audio is going retro. And not just in the music, so there's a lot of 80s feel, a lot of lo-fi stuff, a lot of synthwave stuff, 80s pop rock stuff is very big right now, 80s sort of style beats, gated snares, all that goodness. And look, I'm a fan, so I'm happy with that. But also the effects of the 80s are back. And some of them have taken me a bit by surprise, which is things like, unless you've been living under a rock, if you're into iOS music creation, you've seen that Vhs Synth was released, yeah? Vhs Synth from Audio Kit folks, and it's really cool. And I've seen Patrick, Jade, Jamie, Doug, like everyone in the iOS world, Vortex, like everyone's looking at it, saying it's cool, promoting it, and it is. Don't get me wrong. I haven't used it yet. I'm about to check it out. I might actually check it out next week. I might download it and check it out on next week's show. But everybody is doing the retro thing, and it's so funny, and it's very weird because if you worked with tape, I think a lot of people that love the idea of record scratching and tape warbling were not around when you actually had to use this stuff. Because I think if you're around to use this stuff, I still get flashbacks to trying to actually get a good quality tape recording without having that warble and that flutter. So now to hear that there's so many sounds where we're deliberately grabbing the sound and rubbing it in the dirt, it's kind of weird. It's bizarre. And I get it. Like, I understand that nostalgia is cool and everything's nostalgic. And I think the last 2 years have kind of amplify this. I think it was already happening before then. 2018, 2019, it was already happening. But 2020, 21, 22, I think has amplified it because there's a lot more talk and a lot more nostalgia for the good old days. Not only the pre-C word good old days, but the good old days of the 80s and 90s and the analog warmth and the physical media. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes to from here. And hey, maybe I just need to jump on the bus and start doing some retro stuff. I mean, I kind of did. I did my Time McFly song, which was a bit retro. So maybe I just join it. If you can't beat them, join them. And it's actually pretty cool. Like, I love the music that's being created out of this stuff. It is very, very cool stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to rant on that real quickly because it just seems to be happening. Mark says that with the arrival of HD TV, when a bunch of artists went from TV to radio because they're ugly. Yeah, we found out that a lot of people had a face for radio or at least a face for standard definition. There's a joke on The Simpsons where it's like it's Krusty and they're like, now in HD, and it like a close up on his face and he's just like, he looks terrifying. Yeah, everything is retro, I know. But there'll be a counter movement. Like, this is what I say about everything. As soon as something is really popular, there's always a counter movement that goes back the other way. Yeah, look, I love chiptune too. I'm all about it. And that's the other thing. A lot of people have got the VHS video effects, and like for anyone that battled a VHS tape player tracking while trying to watch a movie back in the 90s or the 80s, yeah, you know that people are adding these like dodgy tracking, like bad tracking effects to their songs, and I'm just like, sitting in the corner, just rocking in the fetal position because of the amount of time you spent with those little dials going, I think I've got, no, I don't got it. I don't know. It's bizarre. But again, I'm just an old man yelling at clouds, so don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I know. And look, this is the thing. Everyone I know and trust that uses VHS Synth says it's super cool. And I watched your show today, Jade. I haven't watched any of the other videos, but I've seen that they're all out there. I've been, I've been loving the sounds, and I like the idea of it. And I just want to, and I know you're working on the your Vice City thing, Jade. And I want to grab it and just try and make something with it, because I think the danger with all this stuff is that, and I know you say this, Jade, and I know a lot of people agree with this, is that you can become a dabbler. You can become someone who just, as Jamie Mallender would say, pissy pants about with a bunch of apps and a bunch of synths, and not actually creates music. So this is not Jade, because obviously Jade creates a lot of music and actually gets stuff done. But I think a lot of people that start playing and fiddling with apps, it can really draw your attention away from what should be the fundamental focus for most of us, which is actually creating, recording, and releasing music. Because otherwise you're just playing with a game. And you know what? I've kind of changed my tune on this a little bit, because as long as you are aware, if you just say, I don't actually want to create whole songs, I just want to play with cool synths and twist knobs and dials. That's what makes me happy, and that's what brings me joy. More power to you. But it's the folks that I see that think that just buying all the apps will actually help them make better and more music, whereas it's actually the exact opposite. I love Russ's approach. Russ, whenever he gets a new synth or a new app, he uses that to make a song. He forces himself to use that app or that plugin to make a song. And that means that he actually knows what it can and can't do, and he can actually go, hey, yeah, when I first started using Nano Studio, here's my Nano Studio song, the first one that I did on that. And when I first started using this synth, here's the song I made with that synth sound. I think that is a really healthy way to go. Otherwise, you can end up spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort and energy, and not actually create more music, just be fiddling about. And again, to be really clear, if that's what you want to do, do it. There's people that love collecting guitars that don't ever record their guitars. They just love plugging X guitar into Y amp and playing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. If that brings you joy and you're not hurting anyone, go your hardest. Do your thing. Then I also got Terra Pro that has blown me away. No nostalgia, just an amazing synth. Yeah, I don't know. I got to get more into synth. I don't do that. Mike and Dawn, funny how things go around, and sometimes people think they're the first. Nothing is new. Just go, yeah, exactly. Look at TV these days. Nothing is new. Everything is a repeat, a replay, a rehash, a reimagining. And look, I don't know. Some of them are okay, but most of them are nothing compared to the OG. Anyway. That's the other thing. I know. And look, the reason I haven't jumped on the VHS synth is yes, it's the new hotness, but I don't know. I don't feel the need to go and try all the new latest and greatest things all the time, because there's cool people like Jade Starr who are going to do it. And look, I know Jade doesn't even jump on the new stuff. There's people that like the race to be first, I think, is a little bit irrelevant. Like, I mean, if you're a YouTube creator, maybe you get yourself an extra 100 views if you're the first to review something. But I often think that sometimes you should dabble a little bit in it first, which is weird, because I say that and now I'm going to try an app for the very first time right here on the show. So I do as I say, not as I do. All right, let's jump into our plugin or app of the week, shall we? And we're going to take a look at the Flux Mini 2 and the Flux Pro. Now, again, the reason I've got my track here, Imagination, is that this has a whole bunch of different tracks, and I thought this will give us a nice canvas to try this on some drums, some bass, some synths, some organs, some vocals, and really put it to the test. So, what is it, and how do you get it? So, Flux Mini 2 is the first one we're going to have a look at, which, if you take a look here it is on the App Store, also linked down in the description. It's already got 4.9 star ratings out of 9, and it's only been out for like a week. So, this is what it's all about. It is as they say here, it is an audio effect that adds life, character, and dynamism to your tracks. The customizable graph creates a shape which can be used to modulate, filter, cutoff, filter, resonance, amplitude, and mix. Just create a shape on the graph, set your desired amount of modulation, and hear the rhythmic effects. And it really is as simple as that. There's the iPhone and there's the iPad screenshots of it. That is the free version. If you want to take it to the next level for $7, $6.99 or $9.99, or is it $10.99 here in Australia, you can go to the next level and get the Flux Pro, which adds a whole lot more stuff. And it is on sale right now, which ends on the 20th of May. So you've got 10 days left for the sale price, and then it goes up, I believe it doubles in price. Jade Star probably knows. I think it goes up to about $12.99. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it's only $9.99. But if you like it, we're going to test it out here right now and find out what it does and if it is cool. All right, let's go back to the iPad. So what do we start with? Well, let's go with the bass, because we've got a couple of bass tracks on here. We'll come back to the start here. And is this going to be the coolest one to use? Let's try this one out. That's pretty cool. A nice bass loop there. So what we could do is if we want to add a plugin to this one, again, we go to the plugins and EQs. We hit plugins and EQs down here and we hit the edit button. So there's nothing really on this bass. It's just the barely phased bass amp sim setting. So we hit the plus there. We go to audio unit extensions. Let's scroll on down. Now, yes, I have used and reviewed Flux Mini before. This is the updated Flux Mini 2. So we're going to tap on that one. I love the icon of this. It looks really, really cool on the icon. And let's tap it and let's play. So here's what it's thrown on there by default. Let's just see what comes out of the box here with this one. All right. Interesting stuff. So we can actually come in here and look at the factory presets. So like all of these cool, this is Calum Audio. We've got some cool factory presets. So let's just play with a couple of these. What about a 4-bar uplifter? Let's try this. That's pretty cool. It brings it in like that. Yeah. So there's lots of really cool options in here that we can play around with. Let's, what about this? The, what was that say? Dotted Francis. Okay, let's try this. There's some wackiness that goes on in here. So yeah, we've got options over here. So you've got the different filters, low pass, band pass, and high pass filters that we can change around here. You've got your ability to sync it here, and you've got a sync button there that you can sync it in, so you can change either the timing or you can do it as notes. So that's kind of cool. That's fun to play with. I'm remembering all this stuff because I haven't done it since we played with this last time. And the cool thing with this is I give these sort of apps to my kids and just say, just play around with it. And they usually are way more creative and they come up with cooler stuff than I do. But we can literally just play around with these and make our own sounds. Oh, wow. Okay. That's super weird. Let's just go back to our factory presets and just go with something a little bit more conventional. Nice. So that's an option we've got, and we can use that on our bass. You can use it on all sorts of instruments. I've got some cool demo videos over on the Calum Audio site that I took a very quick look at. Let's throw it on these drum tracks. Let's throw it on Benny's drums here and see what it's going to do here. So we'll again go down to the Flux Mini 2 and tap on that one. And what do we do? What haven't we tried here? We'll go down to Let's Dance. Who doesn't like to dance? Oh, hello. And you can see here, this is going to be interesting. So we're on a half beat here. What's it going to do with our drum tracks here on this? You know what we need to do? We need to solo those. And let's try it. So you can see that the graph here just creates this very, very cool thing. If you wanted to sort of change that up there. So you can actually change the slope of things. So at its default, it was all the way down here. So it was really sort of going zoom up at the start. But if you want to make sure you have some transients at the start, we can just adjust that there. So we can... And if we want to change the sync here, this can be fun to do it like over, say, 2 bars, like that. So you can kind of get it on every second bar to kind of make it interesting, or you can go the other way and you can bring it right down here to like an 8th note, which you get some pretty wacky sounds going with this. So if you want that kind of glitchy effect, you can throw your sync right down. You can, of course, turn the sync off and just make it more of a millisecond tone there. There are a heap more options here, but we need to jump over and take a look at our next one. Let's put this onto something that might actually sound cool. What was it? It was the half note that sounded all right, didn't it? That's kind of cool. Let's bring it back in the mix. Cool. All right, let's play with the other one, which is the Flux Pro. So by the way, that one's free. Flux Mini 2, it's free. Go download it because why not? You might as well have it in your collection because it's cool. Let's find a synth that we want to play with. So why don't we go with, I think this Saturn, this synth piano here actually might be the one to go with. This is the one that's doing this. All right, let's try it. Let's throw this one on here now. With the plus button, we'll go to Flux, the Flux Capacitor. I'll go to Flux Pro. And thank you to Calum Audio, who gave me this copy of Flux Pro to have a bit of a fiddle with you here today. All right, now we've got some options here. Now we've got the Pro version going on here. You got a whole bunch more options that we can play with here. You got a whole bunch of different curves and different types that we can throw in here and just sort of bring in to our tracks. And we've got a whole bunch more plugins. And look at this. Yeah, we could choose all these. So let's use a synth one. So let's try the Dirty Pedal synth plugin here. So you heard that synth before. Let's hear what it sounds like with the Dirty Pedal. That's a dirty pedal right there. Let's try another couple here. We'll go the Funky Push. Funky Push. And again, we've got the same sort of familiar controls over here. So it's over 2 bars at the moment. If you want it like over a half note here, you can see that it increases the speed and it tempo matches to our track. We'll play it again. That's a little bit too weird and glitchy. But look, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. You can see the amount of different presets that you've got to play with to start with. And look, this is our first look, so we're literally just going to touch the surface. What is the break? Oh, I thought they said breakfast pump, but it says breakbeat pump. Let's just try that one. So that's probably going to be more for your drums. Yeah, you don't really want something like that. We've got Resample in here, which looks interesting. Let's play around with these. Yep. That's cool. I really like that. Let's bring that in here. So it's not only changing up the sound through the modulation effects, but because of the way this works, it can change up the rhythm that you're getting as well, which is why I think it's extra cool that you're not just changing the sound, you're not just changing the plugin. It's literally, in this one, it's literally sampling your sound and then replaying it through here. So there's a lot of cool audio engine processing going on behind the scenes here. So I haven't touched this in anywhere near as much detail as I should to actually give it a decent explanation. But I thought, since it is new, I know, breaking my own rules, but since it's new and it's cool, and Calum Audio makes some really good stuff. They make the tape cassette plugin. Speaking of retro stuff, they make tape cassette, and they make a bunch of other cool stuff. Let's finish off by trying to break my vocals here, shall we? Let's just put something really wacky on here. So we'll come out of here, we'll take that Mixbox off, and we'll add something to my vocals here using this one here, which is I've gone past it. Do you ever find that you've got too many plugins? Too many. The Flux Pro. And look, we're still getting that thing here in iOS 15 where it sometimes doesn't show the logo. Don't know why it does that. So let's go in here. Let's find some of these vocal presets and see if we can make this. What about the triple speak? That sounds too interesting. We'll come out here. We'll solo this vocal and take a listen.
Sometimes I sit around and wonder how I got here. All the complications of my life.
Yeah. Not really cool, not really working for this particular track, but you can see that would be interesting for other types of vocals. Let's try, what's this? Tell Me. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Life, all the times when I couldn't reach the knife in my back to the days when I was a little kid.
Interesting. All right, let's just do one more. What's this one? I can't read these from here. We'll just try this.
Always worry about the things I never did. Always think about the next problem, even when it's someone else that hook me in. Line and sinker.
That's fun. That's really, really cool. This would be the sort of app that you can just sit and experiment with. This is one of those troublesome apps because you're going to spend so much time just fiddling and playing with it and twiddling knobs. You need to make sure that you actually find some sounds and then go use them. But very cool stuff. Calum Audio. It's worth looking at. And as Thomas Christ says here, the Mac version is almost $40 US. So as usual, us iOS users get ourselves an interesting app at a cool price. And go ahead, download the free version, have a play. If you like it and you dig it and you want to support a cool developer, Calum Audio, then go ahead and pick it up. The Pro version. That's actually kind of fun. I liked that last one. I might try and write a song that uses that. Let's just play this bit from the start.
Sometimes I sit around and wonder how it is I got here, and if I'm going under all the complications of my life, all the times when I couldn't reach the knife with my back.
I know, it's cool. All right, sorry. I'll get a bit distracted by coolness. So that is it. There you go. Get it for $7 exactly. Process what you want and transfer. That's a good tip. We're about to do our tip of the week, but yeah, a good tip there from Thomas is if you are creating in iOS, don't forget that you have the option. If you created something in here, you can just export it. Like you might not be able to use the effects in your iOS apps in your Mac apps, but a lot of people have said to me, I love some of the different sounds. I love some of the different things I have in iOS. I don't have them on Mac. It's very, very simple to just create your track, solo it, come out here, and then just export it as a WAV file and then bring it back in. I mean, I've been playing around with BandLab a lot lately, and it's very cool for that because you can bring things into BandLab from other platforms. I think people get a bit stuck and think, hey, once I'm in one platform, I have to stay in there. But you can very, very easily just share your stuff and get it out there using different platforms, which is cool. Alrighty, we are coming up towards the end of the show. Well, that's not the right screen. Hello. We are coming up towards the end of the show. If you do have any final questions or comments or anything that you wanted me to talk about, I think I saw a question a little while back, so I'm gonna scroll up because I'm sure that there was someone that had a question just before I started that part. If you did and I didn't answer your question and I'm going to miss it, please try it again. All right, cool. Where Flux Pro shines is adding it to a single. Yeah, that's a good point, and that's something I should have demonstrated there. I should have actually put it on my pad. Should we just do it? Let's just do it real quick because you're right, Jade. That is one area where it does do really cool things because you can turn just a very boring pad into almost like a cool chopped up sample. So if we come back here to where's my pad that I had here? I think the Mission to Saturn one. See, that one already kind of has a lot of sounds going on, but this could definitely be an interesting candidate for adding. We'll have to take the chorus off. So go Flux Pro. Alright, what if we go with one of the keys ones? Let's try. Yeah. You get some really cool sounds, don't you? Yeah, like that. Definitely. Good call, Jade. As always, Jade's in the driver's seat. Jade spends a lot more time playing with and learning apps than what I do, for sure. Gregory says, I'm a sucker for emulations of vintage hardware since I can collect all the things I couldn't afford back in the day. That is true. Mad Max, hello. Question, is the Korg Key Studio knobs are really not working with GarageBand? Yeah. The short version of that and the sad thing is... yeah, you really, GarageBand itself doesn't have the ability to map MIDI. It's probably got the worst MIDI support of any app, especially the iOS version. So if you've got yourself a keyboard that has pots and synths, pots and faders and all sorts of other knobs and dials, there's really no way to use them. All you can really do with a keyboard in GarageBand iOS is the keys. Sustain, your modulation wheel, that works, and your pitch bends, and that's it. If you've got any other knobs and dials there, as cool as it would be to program those, you can't do it. There are others that you can do that with. Yeah, totally. You could literally just put an entire drone there. There you go. Jade's got a great show. See, this is the thing. I miss all of Jade's shows these days because I've been busy planning my own shows and working on other things. So there you go. Jade has shown Flux Pro, and you can check it out too. Yeah, GarageBand Mac plays a little bit better, but I think you need to go up to Logic or something that's a little bit more powerful before you get the full ability to actually utilize different things, like programming and like mapping of different MIDI stuff. It's unfortunate. The final thing I wanted to talk about here, and I've actually got a video on it, so I'm not going to go into a heap of detail here. You can check out the video over on the channel. But good news for mobile creators and GarageBand iOS creators. As I alluded to at the start, DistroKid, who are a sponsor of this channel, they sponsor my Your Music Live show every week. They have actually enabled the ability to upload mobile. So the problem was in the past, if we come over here, I've had to, wrong one. I've had to actually put, this is the old video that I had, that I've put DistroKid plus mobile. Can you upload to DistroKid on mobile? And it used to say spoiler, no. So I've actually updated this one to say now working, updated video linked in the description, because I've done this video now, which actually shows that, yes, you can indeed release your music from DistroKid on your mobile. So what I do with this one is I go through and I use my GarageBand audio file. I'm right here on iOS in the Files app. I upload it directly. I create the album artwork in Canva, and then I upload it directly using Safari. So you still don't have an app. Like, it would be great to have an app in the future. We don't have an app yet, but you can actually use Safari now to upload directly, even using the mobile browser. In the past, there's been kind of workarounds by going to the desktop browser and uploading from there. But yeah, it is so much easier to do it now just directly from Safari as a mobile browser, which is a great thing for mobile creators, because it was the only thing that was kind of holding me back from recommending DistroKid to everyone. And now I can hand on heart confidently say that everyone can use DistroKid, because even if you are just creating using the microphone on your iPhone and creating songs in GarageBand, and you want to get them out there to the world, and don't underestimate how good the quality can be with some of these, then just do it. Just do it and get it out there, and yeah, release your music with DistroKid. And also don't forget that slaps.com, which is sort of DistroKid Lite, that's also available for mobile. So you can go to slaps.com. So if you're not quite ready to commit the $19.99 per year for DistroKid to release your music, start releasing on slaps.com. It's like SoundCloud, but in my humble opinion, better, because you don't have the ads, you don't have all the distractions in there. I think these platforms, I mean, look at YouTube, look at Facebook lately, or even things like YouTube. They add a lot of stuff. They just throw thing after thing on there, and sometimes you're like, actually, I want it a bit simpler than that. Can I please have a simpler setup than having to go through all of this stuff? So keep that in mind. Gary Hubs is here to witness the end. I did a workaround video, now it's obsolete. Yeah, look, I was about to do that because I'd tried it a bunch of times, and it would, Joe and Barry Glenn tried it a few times, and it would work. Sometimes it would fail other times. Sometimes it would upload the file. Sometimes it would just go 0% and it wouldn't work. So yeah, there were workarounds, but it's very nice that you can actually do it well. Now, if I had to choose one plugin, which would you choose and why? What an interesting question. Let's close out with this one, shall we? If I had to choose one plugin, which would I choose and why? Now, I'm going to be super simple and super boring here. I'm assuming you mean something outside of stock standard plugins. I am a big fan of reverb, and probably second is delay, because I think that you can create without pretty much everything else. You can get EQ if you record in the right space, and if you've got good microphone technique, or you record things well. Sometimes you don't need EQ at all. Sometimes you don't need compression at all. If you have a nice performance and you get a consistent performance, you don't need compression. There's really no way to create good reverb or delay sounds except using a reverb or delay plugin. So I look at it that way, that you can naturally create compression just by making sure that you get a consistent performance and consistent volume. You can naturally change your EQ, or at least get a nice consistent EQ, by recording something well through decent gear. Not the best gear, but decent gear. And look, you can technically get delay and reverb by just, singing in the bathroom or something, but to get good sounding delay and reverb, that's why I think you need a delay reverb plugin. If I had to choose just one plugin that I use consistently on a lot of mixes, well, if we jump over to my iPad screen here, it is probably this one. It's probably the wider plugin. So don't use it too much, but wider by Infected Mushroom. If you've got a mix that you're using that just sounds too narrow, but you don't want to go to the effort of, multi-tracking guitars and tripling and quadrupling vocals, just adding a little bit of wider can make a big difference. It can turn a very stale, bland mix into a really interesting mix. Don't go too nuts with it because you end up with phase issues, but especially if you're looking for a free plugin, I'd go with that. If you want to cheat, go with Mixbox, because Mixbox has everything. Yeah. So if you came in here, if you added the Mixbox plugin from RK Multimedia, that has everything in here. So that has the ability to add a whole bunch of plugins. So that'd be the cheat mode. If I was stuck on a desert island and I could only have one plugin, I'd probably choose this, because you got your amp sims, you got your channel strip plugins for your EQs, you got delays, you got distortion, you got your dynamics, you got everything in there, and you can add multiple all in that one plugin slot. So yeah, if I wanted to cheat, that's the way I'd go. Thank you everyone for being here. I do appreciate you dropping on by. If you're watching on the replay, I hope you are doing well. Please leave me a comment or any questions that you have. I'm always down there in the comments chatting to folks. Black Hole is indeed sweet. Yes. Look, you know what? You want a dirty little secret? Never use Black Hole. I know. I've seen people use it and it sounds great, but I've never used it. So there you go. Maybe I need to. As a reverb fan, I should probably go out and check it. All right, we're right at the 1 hour mark, so I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. So we're going to say farewell. So don't forget the next shows that we have. We've got a couple of really cool, really big shows coming on up. Don't forget that the next one is going to be this one here, Creator Town Hall, with special guest Thomas Christ. That'll be live 3 days from now at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. for the lucky folks in London and the UK, and 10 a.m. here in Australia on the East Coast. And we've also got Your Music Live episode 100 coming up in less than a week's time as well. So tune in for those two. But until then, please be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you soon here on Studio Live today. Take us out, Kronk Song. See ya. GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Whoa, bye for now.